Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, longtime speaker, speaking in over 17 countries, 5-star rated. And of course, I am the author of Leading Winning Teams. You can check out that book, find that everywhere you look online. And of course, most people probably know me, besides being a Bloom Growth coach, as a coach in Major League Baseball, coaching in 3 World Series. And today on the Winners Find a Way show, I have my good friend, John O'Sullivan of Changing the Game Project. John, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. It's awesome to be on here. It's a big day for me. So, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, man. John, big day because he continues to roll out books. John is an author. He is a man on a mission. I'm going to tell you that right now, which is exciting and a mission that's near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about that. But your 5th book out now. It came out a week ago, man. And I mean, it is rolling. You know, I'm sure you're shipping books every day. Like everybody got to get their copies. Like it's awesome. I recall those days from about a year and a half ago when mine launched. And of course, Captain, do you have that copy there? Captain's a new book, The Athlete's Guide to Being an Exceptional Team Leader. So that,
Yeah, and I think I told you the only print copy I own now is the one that says not for resale, where I had to sign off on the final stuff. So I'm super excited though. It's really good. Like we're so excited about this book. My co-author Jerry Lynch and we've done 3 together, and like we feel like it's our best one, and the feedback already has been really good.
I love it. Yep, Jerry Lynch, co-author, and of course it is for sale. Like when he said his says not for resale because his is an author copy, but it is for sale. You can check that out. Find that on all your major networks, Amazon, all the biggies. So find that, get it, and of course check out. You can see that at the bottom, changingthegameproject.com. You can reach out to John directly. He does speaking. He does all sorts of workshops. And really what I love about this book is I'm a guy, John, who loves, I like tactile learning, right? I think people got to get into it. Like I love reading a book, but I've just never been much of a fiction reader. I read fiction with my kids, and I do a lot of that when they were young. We're just reading The Hobbit with my one of my teenies right now. And that's kind of cool, right? I've always enjoyed that. But, I've been a learner and I'm lifelong learner. I want to get into the work. And, I wrote my book with the end in mind of having that pain exchange, right? Doing the discipline of doing something after each chapter. Yours is very workbook style that you wrote with KBDB Publishing. Is that fair?
It's very workbook style in that, there's a difference between information and knowledge, right? And information is, hey, you take in all this stuff, but knowledge is you do something with it. So this book, it's really targeted for, the high school athlete, the college athlete. Those are the teams we do a lot of work with, and the coaches we do a lot of work with. And it's just, a story of an athlete they'll recognize, an idea behind that. What does that teach you? And then some questions, some reflection questions of, what do you need to start doing that you're not doing right now to be more selfless, or lead by example, or compete harder? What do you need to stop doing that you are doing? And all these sort of things. So we really want people to not just like read information, but like reflect on it and think about it for a while. That's how you become a better leader in sports or in any endeavor.
Yeah. At 56 years old, I'm going on 40 years in coaching. I started coaching tennis when I was 15, 16 years old. Recreationally, I was a good tennis player. So they were like, hey, can you teach the kids lessons? And I'm like, I'd love that. That'd be great. My father was a teacher, kind of saw myself as that path. And I have a teaching degree that I've never actually used. I've always been in coaching. Right. But man, I really feel that that aspect of coaching is a bit of a skill, right? It's a bit of an art form, and it's ever changing. You have so many dynamics to it. Hard to master it all, right? And I can say, after 40 years, I think I know less than I thought I knew at 16. Right? I thought, oh, I've got these kids dialed up. Like I know how to get them going,
Mhm.
teach them for 40 minutes, and man, I'm an expert, John. But man, as I've come along the way, there's a lot of dynamics, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the science of coaching, the science of leadership, and then there's the art, right? And so I think the science comes from the study and the learning and learning from others, and the art comes from getting reps, right? Like getting reps and doing it and recognizing scenarios and situations. So, as a leader, as a coach, you're not the same coach in year 1 and year 30, hopefully, right? I meet a few
Yeah.
that haven't
Yeah.
changed and they blame the kids have changed and this and that. But I always love the quote, no man ever steps in the same river twice because you're not the same man and it's not the same river. And I think that's coaching. And, we have a podcast, Jerry and I, called Way of Champions. We've been doing it for 9 years, almost 500 episodes. We've had everyone from Phil Jackson to Steve Kerr to, the Hall of Famers, tons of champions, Olympians. And if you ask me like one common denominator of all these Hall of Fame coaches, curiosity. They're always like, what
Mhm.
else is out there? And I feel like the people who don't get to that level are the ones whose ego gets in the way and they're like, I know it all. I'm already done.
Yeah, I love to Coach Saban. I was in his early days, right? I was at Toledo playing as an athlete when he was coaching our football team. I was not a part of that, but Matt Eberflus and I were pretty good friends, and Matt was his captain, right? Until Matt became later, head coach of the Bears and
Mhm.
went into the coaching realm. And man, since I've known Coach Saban, like every year, no matter the outcome of the year before, what's the 10-15% we need to tweak and get better. Like it's not
Mhm.
like we did everything right last year. Like we saw these things, we saw this, so let's shore that up. And I think
And
that's
even if you
that's
won
right.
the national championship, everyone's gunning for you. So you can't be the same team next year.
Yeah.
You need that extra 10%. Or if you do, if you're, I think the best teams and the best coaches learn our competition is ourselves. And so we've set a high bar. Now let's surpass that bar because everyone's shooting for the bar that we set last year. If we go a
Yeah.
little bit beyond that, we could do this again.
Yeah, it's so true. So let's get into your background. I mean, people are not going to be surprised to hear you're a Long Island guy because you don't sound like you're from Long Island. All right.
If I ask you
So,
if
but
you want
you,
coffee.
there you go. There you go. There you go. Now we hear it. There you go. So but you grew up in the city, went to school at Fordham, stayed in the city, and ultimately graduate work out in Vermont, got your master's, and now you got 2 kids, 2019. So, you're setting them up, getting them to launch, right? That's exciting. So now you've written. How long has Changing the Game project been? What that first book you wrote was Changing the Game, written for the parents, right?
I mean, I put pen to paper in 2012, but it was really sort of
Yeah.
2013 it came out. And I went to the publisher and they said, it's great. You wrote a book. How are you going to sell a book? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know. I didn't think of that. And they're like, why don't you start a blog? And so that's how Changing the Game project was born. I really sort of started blogging a lot. And because of my, academic background, I like to research. And so I started writing a lot about some of the things that weren't going great in youth sports, from overuse and specialization and, this focus on, getting a scholarship and nothing else matters. And yeah, it was cool because I was bringing a lot of the science of sport to the lay person. And right out of the gate, a lot of sport governing bodies, US Olympic Committee and others said, oh, we can use your stuff because actually there's research. You're not just some guy who woke up this morning and had an idea. And so the blog became really, really popular. Right around when the book came out, and it led to a TED talk, and then kind of the rest is history.
Yeah, and then you really built on that, right? Changing the game. Then you kind of shifted. That was for the parents. I mean, targeted,
Hmm.
and we're going to talk about that in a second because parents is a big subject of youth sports, right?
Mhm.
Every moment matters. Your next book for the coaches. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that because that's one that was just that title was so near and dear to my heart. As a guy who's coached thousands and thousands of athletes, there's these moments and you have to recognize them, and they're hard to recognize. They could be on a plane, after a game. They could be at a breakfast. They could be right in the middle of it all, like in the heat of it. And there's these moments where I've got these kids, and and they're coachable, and they want the coaching, and they want it now. And this is the moment, I've got to be ready to deliver, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's easy to miss.
They're easy to miss, and I'll tell you the story. And I got to give my brother. I have a younger brother, and he gets credit. And I was trying to come up for a title for this book, right? And we talk a lot about influence and the importance of our influence, and that it's never neutral. And we talk about these important moments in coaching, and these, we call them like rule of one moments, right? One person, one comment, one time can change your life. And I was just telling my brother, like people always ask me when I start writing a book, oh, what's the title? And I'm like, that's like the last thing I usually come up with. And so I'm sitting with my brother talking about this, and I say, Des, this book's about, your influence not being neutral and how everything.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Okay, sorry.
You want me to start that again?
Yeah, give me that. Yeah, give me that a minute ago. I'll edit that out.
So I want to give my brother credit for this book. I was sitting down with him, and people always ask me, like, when I say I'm writing a book, they say, well, what's the title? That's like the last thing I usually come up with. I write the book and it comes to me. And so anyway, I couldn't figure out a title for this book. And I was talking to my brother. I was like, it's about influence, and it's about, you can say something and change someone's life forever. And he's like, oh, so like every moment matters. I was like, thank you very much. There you go. So he always reminds me.
Yeah.
He always reminds me that he got the title of my best-selling book. So
There you go. There you go. He wants
yeah,
to. Is he waiting on his royalties? Is that what he's waiting
he's
on?
waiting on his
Like, yeah.
royalties. Yes, he's going to keep waiting.
I love it. Hey, kudos to your brother, because it is a good title. And I think it's one of the challenges in coaching and leadership now is that it really feels like the longevity of it is extended. And I don't know if it's because of social media and our access and all this stuff. Like I just remember as a young man, like, I watched the games, and then everyone went home, and no one, we might talk amongst our family with stuff, but I didn't have access to the post game interviews and what people were saying socially. And, and then the camera on the coach at the grocery store at 11 p.m. after a tough loss, and someone wants to stick a camera in his face and go, yeah, coach, you guys really suck today. How can you be so, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, and then that's posted for 3 million people to see a clip of, right? And it just feels
if he or
like,
she acts out
oh
in that
yeah,
moment, or they're
it's a
having
moment.
dinner with their kids at a restaurant, and you come and shove a camera in their face, and they say, get out of my face, man, I'm having dinner. And then all of a sudden, what an a-hole this coach is. It's like, yeah, it's a
Yes.
very public world, that's for sure. And I'm kind of glad I didn't grow up in it, and I feel for my kids and the kids who do, where everything's on video. It's funny. So I played soccer at Fordham University in New York City, and they just did a thing. There was a golf outing, and I got honored at it, and they dug up like these old pictures of me playing, and I hadn't even seen these. And my kids are like, wow, like, you're skinny, Dad, you had
Look at all the
hair.
hair, Dad.
You
Look,
had hair.
look at all
So
that hair, Dad. I
like
know.
they live
I
they're on video all the time, and they're on pictures all the time. Like, I don't have a lot of pictures of me. I certainly have no video of when I was a player.
I know. I know. It's so funny. That's funny that you say that, because one of my sons, my third son, was at university. He's like, Dad, I was checking your stats, and you're still top 10 in that conference in like 2 records." And I'm like, "What? Like, what are
Mhm.
you talking about?" Like,
Mhm.
digitally, just everything exists, right? And it's just
Yeah,
like,
everything can be
man,
found. Yeah.
yeah, it's just so it's such, and I agree with you. Like, I'm pleased to not have to grow up in this, and I do feel for these kids, and I do think there's some real positive things to it, of the fact, like, these kids are, you're being monitored, unfortunately, like it or not, right? You're being monitored, and people are probably saying, there's no accountability for kids. And I'm like, are you crazy? They're on video all the time. You act out in any way. And here's the example I use. I was at this Hall of Fame, Michigan baseball thing, and one of my teammates showed up. It was so great, and hadn't talked to him in a long time. And we were talking about children and the phones. And I was like, yeah, blessing and a curse. Like, what a resource are these things. And at the same time, man, like, too much access, right? Like, way too many, way too many goblins and demons in there. And I was like, can you imagine if we had these when we were kids? He's like, oh yeah, we'd be in jail. And I'm like,
Oh,
what are you
yeah.
talking about? He goes, oh yeah, someone with the video where we broke into the church to play basketball because we wanted to just play basketball with the guys. He thought he had the key and had access. He didn't. Well, we're all there to play. He breaks in, like, so we play basketball at the church. Now we think we have permission, but like, I mean, you do these videos, like, that's a B&E, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all in good faith, but, like, now it's like, man, all the stupid things we did. I'm like, I can't imagine video of all that dumb stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And the thing, I mean, I think, the kid who's at a party and someone takes a photo and you're in the background of the photo, and maybe you're at the party but you're not drinking or you're not doing anything bad, and yet now you get suspended or you get kicked off your
yeah,
team. It's a very hard world to grow up in, and I understand then why parents are very protective of their kids quote permanent record. Remember when we were growing up, it's like, it's going to go on your permanent
mhm.
record, and
Yeah, yeah,
and parents are very protective of that because there's such a huge record out there. And yes, we teach our kids, like, pause before you post and really think about, like, putting something up there that, would you want your grandma to read that?
yeah.
Because if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't post it. And it's really hard, it's really hard on kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think it's challenging. And of course now we're in the NIL world, right? In the NIL world. And of course, NIL, now alcohol at college stadiums, which didn't used to be a thing when we were kids.
Gambling.
Gambling now. And I mean, you just saw the recent, I think last year, a ring of 27 that were involved in a pretty significant deal. And I mean, so now you got every Saturday evening, you got, hundreds of thousands of just horrible social media posts to these kids who erred for the day,
Yeah.
who missed a field goal, who, missed the last shot, who, whatever it is, right? And now all of a sudden, some gambler sitting on their bar stool now at midnight, probably drunk, not taking their own advice of to their kids of, like, don't post something like that your grandma can't read. Go kill yourself. Like,
Mhm.
are you kidding me? You're a middle-aged man or woman telling these children, telling, young adults, really. I mean, like, it's bonkers to me, John. It's
Yeah.
bonkers.
Yeah. And I think, thank God. Now, I don't think the current state of NIL and how we're paying athletes is a good thing at all. It needs serious management and financial controls. And at the same time, if you're getting paid $4 million to be the quarterback at Tennessee, you're going to take some slack. At least now you're getting paid for that. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's good, but at least, at least you, you're going to be okay. Whereas, in the past, when you were just a scholarship athlete and you missed, a field goal and it cost your team the game or cost the team a championship or going to the, national championship game, and you're getting threatened you're like, is this even worth it? So yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could spend hours talking about the messy state of college sports right now, but I think maybe the important part of it is how it trickles down into youth sports, right?
Yeah.
How this, hey, look at me, look at my stats, look at my Instagram profile, look at my whatever. Everything becomes about me, look at me. And then they go to a place where it's about we, where it's about us, where it's about what can I give, not what can I get. And a lot of kids really struggle with that transition of having to be part of a team and not just the center of attention.
Yeah, I think that brings us to book number 3. I mean, the champion teammate. You wrote this
Yeah.
for athletes. Like, what is that actually going to look like to be a champion teammate? And, one of the challenges I faced, part of it was a little bit of envy and challenge being on a very formidable high school program. We went to 3 state championships in a row. And I remember seeing these kids who were getting scholarship offers. And I felt like, I don't know if these kids could break our starting lineup, but they
Mm-hmm.
were superstars at a small school that were losing half their games. And they were like, man, hitting, 500. I'm like, everyone would pitch to him if you don't have anyone to hit behind you, now you gotta throw in, like, these are issues. No one cares because they're already losing 8-0, so
Mm-hmm.
it was really challenging to be a part of that. And I don't know how these college coaches are deciphering that. And I think one of the challenges as my kids came up and went into junior hockey and different programs, I was like, hey, listen, these kids, they're going to watch how you treat the wait staff. Are you on time? Are you doing your work, going the extra mile? How do you treat teammates? Are you ready mentally, physically for each outing and opportunity? And I'm like, we haven't talked about shooting, stick handling, like any of that yet. We're talking about the intangibles, because if you're already here to showcase, everybody can do those things, like the fundamental stuff. What are they looking for as separators? And being a champion teammate is a big deal. Who wants to have a kid who comes in and becomes an issue and a challenge for the university and creates a problem in the locker room?
Well, in the back cover of that book, the first, little description line was that, great teammates are always in demand, right? And you're going to be part of teams your entire life, your family, your church, your community, your business team, a sports team, and great teammates are always in demand. So learning the skills about being a great teammate is important, because it'll always be in demand. And I mean, I got to think about, in your coaching career, the teams you were a part of, the coaching staff never said, you know what, that guy's a great player, but hell of a teammate, we don't want him, right? But you
Yeah.
said the opposite, right? Like, great player, but he's a cancer in the locker room. Do we really need him? And that's the challenge. And I had a kid I coached in soccer here where I live in Oregon for 5 years, and he was like 14, 15. He said, Coach, love soccer, baseball's my thing. And he was a first round draft pick last year, Orioles, and then he just got traded to Tampa Bay. But I would go to his baseball games because it's very close to his family, and I love the kid. And he's an amazing teammate, an amazing competitor. And there would be 6, 8, 10 scouts at every one of his high school games. And a lot of them would come up to me and want to talk to me because I coached them in a different sport. And they didn't want to know, like, they can see the baseball part, right? They have the stats on his speed and how he makes contact and, how he plays the outfield and all this sort of stuff. They're like, what's he like? How does he treat the worst player on the team? What's he like off the field? All these things that they can't see watching a baseball game. Those are the things that matter, because guys who, hit the ball and run fast and field, they're kind of a dime a dozen, as like, there's a lot of people, every top athlete that I've ever talked to on our podcast or interviewed for a book, I ask most of them, was there someone, when you were a young player, was there someone on your team who was better than you And every one of them has said yes.
Yeah.
Why did you make it and they didn't make it? And it's because of all these character traits that are
Yeah.
skills. And if they're skills, they can be developed. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I use the line a lot, and all of us do as leaders. I'll take 10 more just like John, right? Like
Yeah.
whoever that you name the person, right? And I was like, well, John's not the fastest. He doesn't jump the highest. Like, I know, but like,
Oh,
what
so
does he have, right?
you've seen old videos of me play.
Yeah. So like, what does he have, right? He's got those qualities that we want, right? He is a championship teammate. He's coachable. He's adaptable. He takes responsibility and he owns that. And he's great to his fellow teammates. And we have come to depend on John and his ability to bring his best every time and be the best he can be for his teammates and help them. And I mean, those are things that are tough to teach, right? Like, oh, you know what? John, I'm going to teach you how to be coachable. You know what we're going to need? We're going to sit down every day and you're going to become a student, dang it. Like, listen, if they don't want it, they think like, oh, I don't know if you know or not. I already know everything. That's hard to get out of, right? And you got to get humbled before that changes, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about.
I just think, I was just going to say, I just think that idea, I mean, in our captain book and the teammate book, one of the qualities is humility, and it's like, if you are humble and you are coachable and whatever. Now, this doesn't mean you don't respect yourself. It doesn't mean you get walked over, right? You have to have this sort of edge and self-belief, but at the same time, if you come in curious, and again, I talked to this kid, baseball kid, all the time about, and he just went, and he obviously a first round pick, he got a big signing bonus and everything. And, he bought a $3,000 beater car. He's like, Coach, if I spend 50 grand on a car, like I just start losing money. If I spend 3 and put 47 in a growth fund, he's like, if baseball doesn't work out, I'm still set, and it's like, he's just humble. It's wonderful.
Getting good advice, that young man. I like that.
He is. Like I said, he's got a great family.
Yeah, and you wrote this championship teammate with Jerry. You're first together. Then you went on to make the Champion Sports Parent, kind of getting back to changing the game project. You wrote that with Jerry. And then, of course, and how to be the parent of that champion teammate, like what that looks like. And now you've got Captain, which is super, and your third book with Jerry. So super exciting. Here's one thing. I'm going to give you one thing that most people don't know about John O'Sullivan. You actually sang the national anthem in the 6th grade at a Mets game. Is that right?
I did. And and the best part about that is my brother that I mentioned before is incredibly musically talented, brilliant, played in a band. And yet I sang in front of like 45,000 people. He's never touched that number.
See, he can own that title. You can go, hey, listen, I don't know if you know or not, I'm saying in front of 45,000 people.
I remind him as often as I can.
and he is, and would you consider yourself strongly musically inclined?
Me, I'm terrible. I can't sing. I mean, thankfully that was before puberty, but certainly since puberty, like I do not have a singing voice. I don't have an ear for music. And so, it was fun. And it was part of a chorus, but it was a really fun thing. And, when you're young, you don't realize like, oh, maybe everyone just sings at professional baseball games, but apparently not. So, cause I haven't met anyone else who's done that.
It's a pretty elite crowd, right? That's awesome. That's very cool. Let's come back to changing the game project. Are the parents the problem?
The parents are, I think, a reflection of our society, and the parents, whereas they do cause problems, are also the solution. So I think that's the challenge. So many people says we have to deal with parents. I'm like, how about we engage them? How about we give them things to do that can help? That's what these books are, and our podcast and everything is like. These are the things that science and experience says will help your kids. These are the things that says it's going to hurt. Now, we're recording this right after there was an incident in like some 9-year-old baseball game where, or 12 and under baseball game where the pitcher threw a ball into the other team's dugout. I don't know if you saw this or heard this. This was just like last week, and at some tournament, and it's like, and supposedly the dad was involved or whatever. I don't know. Just the fact that the kid would think about doing that, just the fact that he said, I was being harassed by the kids in the other dugout. So where are the coaches in that dugout telling their 11-year-olds, hey, that's not how we do things here. All these things that are just like, there's a role for adults in sports, and it starts with modeling proper behaviors. And if you're sitting there watching a baseball game, yelling at the ump for balls and strikes calls, challenging him, challenging coaches, poking fun at 9-year-old players on the other team, that's a huge problem. And that's not the model for your kids. It's not going to help them get better. And I just think, for too many families, their children's sports has become their form of entertainment. It's become the family vacation because it's gotten so expensive. It's become their friend group. And what happens is, because of that, the kids lose the enjoyment of playing. They lose ownership over the experience, and then they lose motivation. And then that's why so many of them quit. And so, for parents, it's like, let them love it, teach them to love it. Be the parent, not the coach, not the ref, you're not the athlete. You're just the fan. Be their number one fan. Love watching them play. That's the best thing you can do. And I think if more parents just took that deep breath and did that, kids would have a better sports experience.
I think it's great advice. And I'm going to defend the parents on this a little bit, because I'm a parent of 5 athletes, right? Like, so it's not easy anymore.
No.
With you're bombarded. Talk radio. Now you've got ESPN, everything. They bring these things right down to the level, and it's so funny because I'm probably a little older than you are, John, and I didn't have any of this stuff going on, man. We played in tough skins, man. Like, now you got 8-year-olds with full uniforms playing in lighted mini stadiums, in travel ball. And I'm like, man, I didn't do this till I was like 16 years old,
and there's a camera on the backstop streaming the game.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen videos of 8-year-olds who strike out and they look back at the camera because they know dad's watching on his work trip or whatever. It's like, you didn't think about that. You just struck out and you moved on.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole nother level of pressure there that's coming into it, right? Because, oh man, I know my dad's going to be watching. And I think there's some contempt from parents too. Like, we've just spent, $60,000, $80,000 over the last few years. And like, wait a minute, you're not going to get a college scholarship? Like,
you don't want to play anymore.
And we've dedicated all this time and effort, and you're quitting. Like, I think it's going to sour relationships. It's at an utmost imbalance, man. I think we're walking this high rope that, like, any kind of misstep, it ends badly, right? Like, and maybe we get across the high rope, but it just feels like for the person who's not trained to ride the high rope, which is most of us, it will likely end poorly.
It'll likely end poorly. In my first book, Changing the Game, the beginning of the book kind of talked about begin at the end. So what's your family's youth sports mission statement? What's the purpose of this? Imagine your 25-year-old, and I know you have kids that age. What do you want him or her to be like? What do you want them to get from sports? And no one's like, oh, I hope they have 2 concussions and 2 ACLs and are bullied by coaches and are on a terrible team that won a lot. They say, I want to be a good person. I want them to be healthy and active for life. I want them to have learned good lessons and have had positive role models. Well, begin from there. Well, then what are you doing to work towards that? Because I see so many people say that, and And then I say, well, what's that team you're playing for now? I went and watched them play. The coach is a lunatic on the sideline. And oh, yeah, by the way, your 12-year-old got 3 minutes of playing time in their soccer game. How are they going to get there? Like, this is not the path. Oh, yeah, but they win a lot. Yeah, but your kid's going to probably quit. Right. So begin at the end and figure out what the purpose of sport is, and then work backwards from there and find coaches, programs, sports, sporting experiences that match the things that your family values. Because if you value integrity, don't sign them up for a team that cuts corners. And people do this all the time.
Yeah. There's horror stories, right? I mean, there's horror stories of kids acting out. I remember the kid, the aluminum bat hitting a kid in the line for candy after a game, years back. Um, the parent, I had personal experience with a big raise to go to the baseball 12U to go to the Hall of Fame, right? You go to
Cooperstown,
Cooperstown,
yeah.
12U only, right? And it's a huge lift to get these kids out there for the week. And of course, it's random. This is supposed to be for fun. Every week they bring in another 60 teams from anywhere who got a slot, who said, we would like a slot on the week of June 20th. Like, it's no more than that. Like, you know what? And this coach is like, we're going to be ranked number 1 at the end of the week, and and you two kids, you're not going to play.
Yeah.
Like, they're 12, bro. Like,
Yeah.
what are we talking about? Like, I don't know, because the professional's background in sports, I don't know how many parents have come up to me and like, man, what do you think it's going to take? We really want, Johnny to play in the top league and be a pro and get paid. And I'm like, Johnny's 9. Like, are you guys seriously talking about this right now? Because like, Johnny needs to love the snot out of that, because the dedication it's going to take when he's like 13, 14 years old will be, it is a literally, I love this and I love to spend 8 to 10 hours a day doing this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're going to have to enjoy it that much. And this is what he's going to have to want. And you can't enjoy it for him. Like, you can't want it for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a, and the fact is, you do that whole trip to Cooperstown and those kids will probably not remember any of the games. They'll remember the hotel and the pool and the Hall of Fame. But then I meet coaches who are, parents are like, our 9-year-old ice hockey team, went from Chicago down to Dallas for a tournament. Like, first of all, why is there's 10 million people in Chicago? You can't get a game for your 9-year-olds, but that's a whole other issue. But they're like, but the coach won't let them go to the pool. The coach won't let them play hall hockey and whatever. And it's like, you're stealing all the things that are actually going to matter in the end, and you're sucking out the joy. And they're going to find something else that they enjoy more. And who cares? I was reading, this was a baseball story I read the other day, just about, it was around this Oklahoma story, but someone was just saying, they're at a tournament and it's a 9-year-old game, and the coach is intentionally walking someone on the other team in the second inning so they can win the game. Like, you're not even letting a kid hit. Right. And it's like, when you ask kids, like, why do you love baseball? Because I love to hit, catch, and run. And then the adults come in and what do? They do everything, get the dominant pitcher and do everything so that no kids can hit, catch, and run. Right. And then wonder why they walk away.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And I think these coaches, these parents think, like, I've read a lot. I've been on the internet. I used AI to devise my lineup based on all the stats I have on all my 9-year-olds. Like, what are you doing, man? Like you're losing sight of this. Like, you are not Joe Torre. Like, you are not paid professionally to do this. And to think you probably could have done a better job with the Yankees, you can keep that in your own mind. Like, that's fine. But at the end of the day, man, like, it's crazy how we've got to this place. And again, I think part of this is come back to access, which is freaking me out, like how much access people have. But I think the expectations got to be set more clearly, and I think leagues and divisions and things like that. And unfortunately, a league who goes out and stands out and says, hey, listen, we're going to be a league of, and I'll just use the example of a faithful league. We're going to be the Christian league, and we're going to pray before the games, and we're going to teach these kids about values and what matters. And, like 10 parents are like, we're out of here. They're not even talking about winning and losing yet. They're not talking about like 6-foot trophies. We need something better for Billy, because he's 8 and he's got to develop his skills now. And I'm thinking like, oh my goodness. So you lay these things out for the betterment of it. And we have to get real to that. And one of my examples of this was, as you and I have owned businesses, we've done different things. And, I had a young man that we were probably like, it was probably that 12, 13-year-old age. And he was by far our best hitter on the team. He's hitting the 3-hole because he's amazing. And this is what he does. And, we run up against some 13-year-old who's 6 feet tall. This kid, whack, he's throwing BBs, man. I'm like going, man, I don't know if I can hit this kid right now from, 48 feet, right? So, he strikes out like, probably like 19 for the 21, outs, right? And and his mom calls me the next day and says, Tommy, fictional, Tommy's going to quit. I'm like, quit what? Like, well, quit baseball. He's so unhappy. He struck out 3 times that year. I'm like, did you watch the game? Like, everybody struck out. Like, that kid was awesome. Like, like it was amazing watching that kid. Like I said, like, no one had a chance. Like, and Tommy didn't, and nobody else did either. Like, it's fine. Like, he needs to get practice from
when Aaron Judge strikes out 3 times, you think he's like, I'm quitting tomorrow? No, it's like the most high failure rate sport. Obviously, Mike Matheny and, major leaguer and manager. And, I don't know if you know the story, but when he retired, before he got into management, he was coaching like a local little league team. And he came in and he wrote this letter to all the parents, and it was called the Matheny Manifesto. And it was kind of like that. It was like, listen, we're going to practice more than we play. There's going to be character lessons. I think there might have been, a Christian or prayer element or whatever. Yeah. Maybe not. I don't remember exactly. But, he did all that. He's like, all the kids are going to get to try all the positions. They're going to play a different, they're going to bat different parts in the order and whatever. And 3 people took their kid off the team.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's like,
and Mike ended up coaching the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah, exactly. You had a major league manager, but you took your 10-year-old off the team because he was going to let every kid play and actually not play 5 games a week, but try to play 2 and practice and get better at baseball. I mean, youth baseball has a practice problem in the United States, right? You spend all these hours.
Yeah.
All these hours to get 9 swings.
All games.
At 9 swings and touch 3 balls in the outfield and whatever. And you never practice. And you wonder why kids from the Dominican and Cuba and whatever are surpassing our kids, because they actually practice baseball.
Yeah. A good friend of mine, Jerry Jenkins, wrote the the Matheny Manifesto, his bio, right? Yeah. And Jerry, also a dual author like yourself, wrote a famed left. He's a great author, and then of course his son Dallas is doing The Chosen. Mike Matheny, what exactly right, making a move to fix youth baseball. And you'll laugh, John, at how many times I've had arguments with dads like, it's not T-ball. They're 12. Why would we use a T? And I'm like, I coached in the major league for 13 years. We use T's every day because it's instant feedback to exactly what's going on with your swing. Like instant. And I said, a great hitter like Albert Bell did not start his day until he hit 150 balls off a tee. Like, that's just where you start. And dad's going, T-ball. My kid doesn't need the T. And you don't understand reps, man. Like, you don't understand the value of what this is going to provide.
Or just this world, right, where it's like you've coached at this level and been in close proximity to people who are the best at the world and watch what they do. And this dad goes, yeah, but that's not what's right for my kid, right?
Yeah.
And then when the kid doesn't gets cut in high school because he hasn't done it right, or doesn't have the work ethic or the selfless attitude or all these things, it's too late, right? And so many
Yeah.
parents realize that their path is too late, and there's a huge bias, and I know this from personal experience of coaching, of like, oh, that's not my kid's different. And it's like, unlikely. Your kid's
Yeah.
still a human being, and humans have basic human needs for connection, needs to feel competency, all these sort of things. And you're taking that away, the needs to feel ownership and agency, and you're taking that away, and you're living your own unfulfilled dream. I mean, I've coached a lot of kids of former professional athletes, and they're actually the best parents in
Yeah.
my experience, because they know what it takes to get there. They know it's unlikely their kid will have that same desire and drive, and they're okay with it. And if their
Yeah.
kid does have the desire and drive, they know how to support them, and they know it's not really thinking too much about how good their kid is at 10, because that's not really the age that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember one of my coach buddies, an Arizona State football guy, would not let his kid play tackle football because he was the biggest kid. They're gonna put him on the offensive line. He's like, you're gonna play flag and air it
Yeah.
out and play all the positions. You go be a center, go be a receiver, go be a quarterback. And he could throw the ball 60 yards when he's 13 years old. And like,
Yeah.
why would I want him to go play tackle? Put a double stripe on his helmet because he's bigger than all the other kids, and you limit him to 8 plays, and like all these things that you can't do. And he's like, I'm not doing that. Like, he just needs to develop. He'll get there. Like, it's fine. And if he wants to play
Yeah.
college ball, great. If he doesn't, I don't care. Like, that's
Mhm.
fine. He's got to decide what he wants, because I don't want, I know what I wanted. Like, that's fine. And,
Yeah.
one of the things that you talked about, talking about that coachability and the dad, you said something very impactful to me, the yeah, but, at the professional ranks, we give players like 3 yeah, buts, and that's it.
Mhm.
3 yeah, buts, and you're deemed not coachable.
Mhm.
Like John O'Sullivan, the best coach in soccer, did all these things. Da, 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 da. I get this kid who comes in and he goes, he's 17 years old. And, well, yeah, but my dad says I should be working my striker position like this. And you're like, well, what does
Mhm.
your dad do? Oh, well, he owns a plumbing supply house. Well, of course he knows everything about soccer. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I know. And the thing about it is, like, this young boy's father has the best interest for his kid and this and
Yeah.
that. But like, you got to be coachable. You got to listen to the best who have been there, because the best who have ridden at that level, I call it hyper learning, right? And I, and
Yeah.
I and I talk about that, in leading winning teams, because
Mhm.
when I look back at it, you're in this environment where, well, John O'Sullivan coached, he played Division I soccer. He's been coached by some of the best players, and he got on, all-star teams, and those get the best coaches, and you keep getting, and then so did 19 of your teammates, right? And so you're all bringing this like pile of data and information in, and we're streaming down to what actually is going to really help us get to that next level. And then you jump to MLS or that next level, and then it's like, oh my gosh, these guys have just been really elite, and they've been these coaches, and now international coaches and all these stuff. And what's the best practices here? So it's just been scaled down, and then you got some dad who's like, yeah, but, and so when you had young athletes, yeah, but the coaches just stopped talking, and I'm like, listen, when they stop talking to you, the end is near, because they don't think you're coachable anymore, and they're not going to waste their oxygen. Because I'm gonna stop talking to you, Billy. I'm going to go talk to John, because John's all ears and ready to make adjustments and adapt, and he takes in the data. He filters it. What does it mean to me? What do I need to go in and do, work my reps? And he takes action. So, like, I'm not going to waste any more oxygen. I'm putting my oxygen into John, and they
Yeah.
won't. They will stop.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing as a parent, as a coach, is also, I think there's this fine line between taking insight from everybody and at the same time having enough self-belief to go, you know what? I know what I'm doing here in this moment. Like, like someone struggling with their hitting in baseball probably shouldn't take input from 15 people. That's not being
Right.
like, at some point you're like,
Right.
Coach Trent, that's my trusted guy on hitting. I'm going to listen to him. I'm going to go work on that. I'm going to watch film, and I got to believe in myself that I'll come through this slump. Right. And so I think there's this like healthy self-respect that great athletes have, that I don't think is being uncoachable, but is also like, I got this as well. Now, I think, I heard this great story. Dan Coyle wrote the Talent Code and everything. He told us a
Yeah,
story
yeah,
on the podcast about Kawhi Leonard, the basketball player. And when he was a rookie, his coach pulled him aside and said, because he had a really weird shooting technique, and it got him through,
yeah.
youth basketball and college basketball or whatever. And he said, "Hey, Kawhi, listen, man, I got one question for you. You want to be good, or do you want to be great? And you need to answer that, because if you want to be great, you're going to have to change the way you shoot, because the defenders in the NBA they're too good, right? You can't have a low release point or whatever it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, but that's up to you. You just want to be good. You're going to be a good player in this league doing what you do now. But if you want to be great, if you want to be a franchise player, if you want to do that, you're going to have to change something. You let me know." And Kawhi came back the next day, said, "I want to be great." He said, "All right, let's get to work." And I think that's the kind of thing you can say to a kid. Hey, listen, Mr. Yeah, but you want to be good, or you want to be great? Because if you think you're going to hit the next level doing what you're doing there, or if you're going to keep pitching that way, you're going to blow out your arm, or you can learn to do it the right way. It's up to you. You let me know what you want to do, and then we'll move forward.
Have you ever talked about in any of your books? I haven't read all your books, about the voice. I'm talking to a lot of kids like, hey, do you know the voice you need to be listening to? Because in the middle of the game, it's not your grandmother. It's not your dad. There is stuff going on, and having that, I would call it like a discretion, being knowing this is the voice I need to be listening to right now. Like during that slump, there's 15 voices who are happy to tell me what I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the one voice I actually need to go back and see? Who is that trusted advisor I need to be listening to? Who has the data? Who knows me well enough? Who I believe will help me get me through this? Who has my best interest? This is all the relationship part of it that I think that people miss.
Yeah. So yes, definitely would talk about that, because certainly mentality and mental strength and mindfulness and all these things really matter at the highest levels of sport. They are differentiators. I think, and you and I were talking before we started recording about the late great Jim Lair, and what I
Yeah.
learned from Jim, I think he just put it well. He said, the most influential coach in your life is that voice in your head telling you either you're not good enough, or, it's okay, you'll get through this. And you need to train that voice as well, because it doesn't matter how good that outside trusted advisor is. If you're stepping up to the plate, or you're going to take a penalty kick or whatever, and you're telling yourself, man, I don't know that I got this. And so that's always resonated with me, is developing, is like training that voice. And what Jim says, which I really loved, is if the voice inside your head was a person, would you be friends with that person who's telling you all day you're not good enough, you suck, you're not worthy? You probably wouldn't be. So, speak to yourself like you would speak to others, and like you would want to be spoken to. And that's always really resonated with me, because I think every athlete goes through moments of doubt, and certainly feels pressure and stress and anxiety. And, the parents who think, oh, well, those guys don't know what it's like to be. Yes, they do. I just, sorry, I'm rambling, but the recent Masters that Rory McIlroy won, he had a Whoop band on, and they shared all the data, and he's on the 18th tee Sunday afternoon with a 2-stroke lead, and his heart rate on the 18th tee was 135 beats a minute. So don't tell me he's not crapping
feeling
his
it.
pants,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he's still got to go
right.
up and hit a ball. It's not about feeling stress or anxiety. It's the ability to take positive action. When you do, that matters most.
One of the things, Jim got me through a hard time, man. I became a tennis player, in that early high school, and I was competing at a pretty high level. And I went quickly into that competition, and I wasn't very well prepared. And it was my really first, I shouldn't say my first, but it was probably my most significant individual sport experience. And I'd had all the success in team sports, like, we lost, but I'm scoring touchdowns, or we lost, but I went 2 for 3, and we'll score 2 runs. And then all of a sudden I started losing individually, and I was like, holy crap. And my you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not fast enough, all that's in my head, right? And I was like, and Jim Loris talking me down off the cliff, right? And I'm reading everything I could get from him. It was so influential at the time. What's your position on individual sports versus team sports for kids as we wrap this up?
I mean, I think they're both important and really cool, because I was like you, right? I mean, I played soccer and basketball and baseball and everything growing up. But you know what I did for 8 years? I was a wrestler. And you know what wrestling does? You can't blame anybody else when you get your face smashed. You got to look at yourself. And I think, the wrestling coach Dan Gable said, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. And man, I agree with that. And so, it was fun because my kids who did team sports and whatever, but like my son is senior year of high school, played high school soccer, finished up in the fall, and said, Dad, I'm done with the club. I'm taking up boxing. I'm like, phenomenal. And he's like, when I'm going to spar, like, man, that was, like, is so nervous for that, and so I think any athlete, a team sport person, you'll be better at your team sport if you do some individual stuff, do some martial arts, do boxing, play golf. I don't care, play tennis, but find a way where all the attention's on you, and now that voice in your head gets really, really loud, and learn to overcome that. I think it's an incredible skill.
Ownership and responsibility, not easy, and it's great. For everybody, thank you for joining us on Winners Find a Way. John O'Sullivan from changingthegameproject.com. You can check that out. Go see him. Visit Speaks All Over. His new book, Captain, is incredible. Now out 1 week, so you can buy that everywhere, all over the bestseller list, I'm sure, this week. So that's fabulous. Check it out. John, thank you so much for joining us on Winners Find a Way. Always a pleasure to see you, man, and talk some shop. And we can talk for hours, right? So
this is really fun. I just looked at the time, like, wow, I went fast. And those are always the best conversations. Right? So I really appreciate you having me on.
You bet. For everybody else, Winners Find a Way every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, live YouTube channel at Leadershipity, my Facebook and LinkedIn Live. And then, of course, our podcast drops every Friday morning, and you can check that out and find that. Like us, subscribe, share it, please. And we love to see you down the road, and check out changingthegameproject.com. Until next time.